When we talk about purpose, most people want to start with joy, with passion, with dreams. But the truth is, the very first step toward finding purpose in pain is to acknowledge it, to stand face to face with it without denial. Pain is not an enemy you can outrun. It is a reality every single human being must encounter. To pretend otherwise is to live in an illusion. And illusions may comfort us for a while off, but they never strengthen us. Think about it, what happens when you cut yourself. You don't ignore the wound, you don't cover it up and pretend it isn't there. You recognize it, you treat it, and only then can it begin to heal. Emotional pain, psychological suffering, even the heartbreaks we carry, they work in the same way. Denial does not heal wounds. Acknowledgement does. The problem is, we live in a world that teaches us to hide our pain. Society glorifies strength as the absence of struggle, but true strength is the courage to admit, yes, I am hurting. Yes, I am broken right now. And yes, this is real. There is something profoundly human about being able to sit with your pain without rushing to escape it. Because pain is not meaningless. Pain is a messenger. It is telling you something about your life, about your values, about what truly matters. Psychologists often speak about the concept of radical acceptance. The idea that before you can change your life, you must first fully accept reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. This doesn't mean you approve of your suffering or that you resign yourself to it. It means you recognize it, you name it, and you give yourself permission to feel it. Because feelings buried alive never die, they only come back stronger. When you acknowledge pain, you strip it of its power to control you. Most people are not destroyed by their pain, they are destroyed by their refusal to face it. They drown in the weight of what they refuse to name. But once you name it, once you face it, you reclaim your agency. You can now choose what to do with it. Let's consider this through a philosophical lens. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, once said, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." He wasn't glorifying pain. He was acknowledging it as a condition of being alive. You cannot avoid it, but you can interpret it, you can make sense of it, and through that interpretation, you can rise above it. But acknowledging pain is not just an intellectual exercise. It's deeply personal. Many of you have scars you never wanted. Some of you lost people you loved, some lost dreams you had built your identity around, and some are still walking through silent battles no one knows about. To stand in front of your own pain and say, "This is real, this is mine, and I will not deny it anymore," requires enormous courage. That moment of acknowledgement is the beginning of transformation. And here's the paradox. The more we acknowledge our pain, the more connected we feel to the rest of humanity. When you admit your struggles, you realize you are not alone. Everyone, regardless of wealth, status, or background, is carrying something heavy. Acknowledgement doesn't isolate us, it unites us. It breaks the illusion of perfection and builds bridges of empathy. There's also something very powerful that happens neurologically when we acknowledge pain. Studies in neuroscience show that labeling our emotions, simply putting words to what we feel, reduces the intensity of the suffering we experience. When you say, "I feel grief," or "I feel anger," the emotional centers in your brain calm down, and the rational centers become more active. Naming the pain creates space for clarity. So the first step is not to run, not to numb, not to hide behind distractions. The first step is to pause, to breathe off, and to acknowledge the reality of your pain. That acknowledgement creates the foundation upon which you can begin to build purpose. Without that foundation, purpose becomes a fragile fantasy. With it, purpose becomes an unshakable force. I want you to imagine for a moment that your pain is a guest knocking at your door. You can keep the door shut, pretend no one is there, but the knocking will continue. Or you can open the door, invite it in, and ask, "What lesson do you bring me?" It doesn't mean you enjoy the company of pain. It means you are willing to listen, and in listening, you discover something new about yourself. The truth is, you cannot heal what you refuse to feel. You cannot find meaning in what you will not acknowledge. To find purpose in pain, you must first have the courage to accept that pain is a part of your journey, not as a punishment, but as a profound invitation to growth. And so, if you take nothing else from this, take this: don't deny your pain, don't silence it, don't bury it. Face it, name it, embrace it as part of your story. Because once you do, pain stops being the end of your story and starts becoming the beginning of a new chapter. Pain acknowledged is pain transformed. And when you dare to face it, you've already taken the first step toward turning it into purpose. Once we acknowledge our pain, the next question becomes, how do we see it? Because acknowledgement alone is not enough. Pain without perspective can leave us bitter, angry, or even hopeless. But when we shift the way we look at our struggles, the very same pain that once threatened to break us begins to prepare us for something greater. Think about this. The same fire that melts butter hardens clay. It is not the fire that decides the outcome, but the substance. In the same way, struggles themselves are neutral. It is our perspective that gives them meaning. Some people go through pain and lose themselves, while others go through the very same kind of pain and discover themselves. The difference is not in the suffering, but in the way they interpret it. This is why perspective is so powerful. If you see pain as punishment, you will resist it, resent it, and try to run from it. If you see pain as preparation, you will endure it with a sense of purpose. You will begin to ask, what is this shaping in me? What kind of strength is this forcing me to develop? That simple shift transforms suffering into an ally rather than an enemy. Psychology gives us a helpful lens here. Of Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote that human beings can survive almost any how if they have a why. He observed that those who found meaning, even in the horrors of concentration camps, were the ones who held on to life. They reframed their struggles as a pathway to something higher, something beyond the immediate pain. That shift in perspective didn't remove their suffering, but it gave them the endurance to face it. Now ask yourself, how many times in your own life have you gone through something that felt unbearable at the time, but later, when you looked back, you realized it was shaping you into who you are today? Maybe it was a heartbreak that taught you resilience. Maybe it was a failure that redirected you towards something better. Maybe it was rejection that made you redefine your worth. In the moment, it felt like an ending, but later you saw it was a beginning. That is the power of perspective. Philosophically, we can think of pain as a sculptor. Imagine yourself as a block of marble, or the sculptor strikes the stone with sharp, painful blows. From the perspective of the marble, it feels like destruction. But from the perspective of the artist, every strike is refinement, every cut is shaping beauty. Life is that sculptor, and pain is the chisel. If we only focus on the blows, we see cruelty. But if we shift our perspective, we begin to see art taking form. The real tragedy is not the pain we experience, but the story we tell ourselves about it. If the story is, this means I am weak, I am cursed, I am broken, then pain becomes a cage. But if the story is, this is shaping me, preparing me, equipping me, then pain becomes a classroom. Same struggle, different story. And the story you choose to tell yourself determines whether you rise or remain stuck. It's also important to understand that struggles reveal truths we would never notice in comfort. Success teaches us very little, comfort numbs us, ease dulls our vision. But pain forces us to pay attention. It forces us to reflect, to question, to go deeper. Shifting perspective means no longer asking, why me? And instead asking, what now? Not, why did this happen to me? But what is this teaching me? The first question chains you to the past. The second one empowers your future. Let's bring this closer to everyday life. Imagine losing a job. You could see it as punishment, as rejection, as the end of your stability. Or you could see it as an invitation, a push toward a path you would never have taken otherwise, an opportunity to grow skills you didn't know you had. The situation itself hasn't changed, but your perspective determines whether you are crushed by it or carried forward through it. The same applies to relationships. When someone walks out of your life, you can see it as abandonment, or you can see it as space being created for something or someone more aligned with your journey. When you are betrayed, you can see it as proof that people are untrustworthy, or you can see it as a painful but necessary lesson in discernment. Again, the perspective is what shifts the pain from being destructive to being instructive. This does not mean we should romanticize suffering or pretend it is pleasant. Pain is still painful. Struggles still hurt. But shifting perspective is about not letting pain be the final word. It's about deciding that the struggle will serve you, not enslave you. It's about believing that life is not happening to you, but for you, even if in the moment you cannot yet see the bigger picture. So the question is, what perspective are you choosing? Are you allowing struggles to define you as broken or as becoming? Are you choosing to see them as punishment or as preparation? The lens through which you view your suffering will determine not only how you endure it, but also who you become because of it. And if you take only one thought with you, let it be this: struggles are not here to destroy you, they are here to transform you. Change your perspective, and you change the power pain has over you. Because pain with the wrong perspective becomes a prison, but pain with the right perspective becomes the path to your purpose.